the inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
We made a lot of hard choices and decisions at the state level. A lot of them they don't want to make at the local level. Let me go in and run their budgets.
Governor Kasich does not have line-by-line control of local government budgets, but his new state budget sets significant limits and has provisions that attempt to drive reorganization of local government in Ohio. Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. I'm Dan Hurley. Whether it is a family, a company, or a government, if you want to understand the entity's underlying values, look at the budget, not the rhetoric. We talk about all sorts of governments, the federal government, the state governments, city and village governments, township governments, school boards, and on and on. But remember, only 51 sovereign governments exist in the United States, the federal government and 50 state governments. All the different types of local governments are constitutionally simply extensions of the state government. And in the budget that Governor Kasich and the Republican-controlled legislature just adopted, local governments lost $630 million over the next 2 years. At the same time, the budget contains $45 million for the Innovation Fund and program. This fund is designed to encourage first steps to strategic restructuring of local government by incentivizing moves towards regionalism and intelligent land use through consolidations, mergers, and other approaches designed to increase efficiencies. To discuss the push-pull nature of the new biennial budget on local government, I am joined this morning by Gene Krebs, the Senior Director of Government Affairs and Policy for the Greater Ohio Policy Center, headquartered in Columbus. Prior to joining Greater Ohio in 2004, Gene served on the Eaton City School Board as a county commissioner in Preble County and 8 years in the Ohio House of Representatives. There, Gene chaired the Farmland Preservation Task Force, and that was the last time he was on Newsmakers. And Ed Humphrey, the president of the Clermont County Board of Commissioners. Mr. Humphrey is also president of the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Council of Governments, OKI. Before becoming a county commissioner, Mr. Humphrey served as Miami Township trustee for 19 years. Both of you, welcome to Newsmakers. Gene, welcome back to Newsmakers.
Thank you.
This is, all this attention over the last several months has been given to the cuts, whether it was in schools or the local government fund or whatever. And this sort of approach that is in there with this $45 million, which is the carrot rather than the stick, where did this come from? Have other states been doing this, or how innovative is this thing?
This is pretty innovative, and I think that the way that the state of Ohio has this structured is something that is very much innovative, cutting edge, and it goes to the old saying, as we say back on the farm, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. However, you can salt the feed. And what this is the salt in the feed to go ahead and get governments to do things. One of the fears is that we need to have governments restructured, much like business is restructuring. We're not, are we adapting to our new technology? The state of Ohio, let's face it, counties are formed the way they are and shaped the way they are because in the early 1800s it was felt that a man had to get up on his horseback, travel to his county seat, conduct his legal affairs, and return in time to do the evening milking. The only county that still works for is Holmes County, where all the Amish live. And so when you look at how the state of Ohio is constructed, the question is, in this larger technological change, how we live now, is that really the best, most efficient way to govern? And does it give us the best level of services? And does it allow us then to invest in what really matters?
Ed, when as a county commissioner and also as president of OKI, so you're interacting with local government officials all over the region, not just Ohio,
Yes.
but also in Kentucky and Indiana. As the state budget process went on, and now that it's over, what was your perception from the county commissioner point of view now, from your position as county commissioner? What was your reaction to the cuts for local government, and what's impact going to have on Clermont County?
I wouldn't say it's devastating, but it certainly is a cut that we have to take into mind. It's difficult for us to make reductions. We haven't had a raise in any employee in the county, including the elected officials, in 3 years. And so We've held things even. We've lost some employees through attrition. We haven't actually laid any off, or very few we've laid off. So it's.
Do you think you will now have to lay people off over the next 2 years because of these?
We're going to learn to adapt. We're going to be able. I think we're going to be able to adapt and continue the layoffs through attrition. But I doubt if we have to actually make major cuts.
On the other hand, the flip side of this is $45 million to encourage looks at changing the way local government operates.
Right.
Is this something that you, other local government officials that you interact with, were you tracking this in the budget process, and is there much talk about this yet?
Well, we were tracking it in the budget process, but this came out of the joint commission between the House and the Senate. So it was kind of new, the exact way that this was formed. So we're now starting to evaluate it and see how we can take advantage of it, see what we can do to use this fund, see the direction it's headed, and how we can use this fund for the county.
Okay, so people are intrigued by it, at least. Let's put it that way.
Well, we're interested.
When there's $45 million out there, people can be intrigued by
Sure.
it. Okay.
Sure.
Now, and we'll talk about the fund later on, but let's begin with some groundwork here. And Greater Ohio Policy Center, Gene's organization, has provided some graphs and maps. I want to start with a map of the United States that shows the number of local governments per county, and the darker the color, the more local governments per county there are. And by the way, Ohio is pretty high, and Hamilton County is the highest. It has the darkest color. What's this say to you? What's this map say to you?
Well, first of all, when I show this map to the general public, this is what I call a smartphone-free moment. Everybody stops looking at their smartphone and stops checking their emails. They look at that, and everybody starts looking and going, whoa. And when you look at that stretch from Maine all the way through up to Minnesota, you think about, this is where we've been bleeding jobs. It's where we've been bleeding population. And the question we're asking ourselves is there a relationship between that? Has this density of local governments per county made us less economically competitive, for example, to the southeastern states, which are generally commonwealths? Do they have a different type of government that's leaner, that allows them to operate more efficiently, lower taxes, but also, very importantly, the bureaucracy? You can fly into Northern Kentucky Airport and within one afternoon end up with the 3 memorandums of understanding you need to move forward with your economic development project. 9 months later, on this side of the river, you're still not sure you've actually touched every single local government party you're supposed to touch to move forward.
If we went back to that map, at the top of that map there was some standards there. The average number of local governments per county, if I remember correctly, I think it was about 27.9.
Right.
What about national? For nationally, what about Ohio?
Ohio's at 41.3.
41.3.
So if we could become mediocre, it'd be quite an improvement.
And I want to point out that in Hamilton County, just in case anybody has
doubts,
we have 71 that I can count, and that doesn't count special districts.
Right.
So, and I know there's at least 4 or 5 of those suckers out there.
Right.
So now, Clermont County, what do you think of as the number of local governments you have in Clermont County?
Well, we have 14 townships and about 13 villages in the county, of course.
And throw in 9 school districts.
Throw in 9 school districts, okay.
So that puts you at 27, which actually puts Clermont County closer to the national average rather than the Ohio average, much less at Hamilton County.
Right.
But it's not as developed, it's not as intensively. The size of your county is, what's the population these days?
192,000.
192,000. So that's one way to look at it. Now there's a bar graph that's kind of interesting about population growth, decline, change, and the cost of local government. Let's take a look at that. Local government costs. Now I know this one's hard to read, and Ohio comes in the middle, but the basic point here is that population growth has been very tiny in Ohio, but the rise in cost of local government, which is the light color there, has been pretty high.
And we think this is one of the reasons why that Ohio as a state, your state obligation for taxes as a percent of your income, Ohio ranks 33rd in the nation. So we're not too bad on your state tax duty. Locally, though, we're the 6th highest state on local tax obligation as a percent of income. So whereas the state has done a fairly decent job of keeping your tax rates fairly low, at the local level, and last year we were 9th, so now we're 6th. Okay. So we're moving in the wrong direction.
Okay, and then just to get one more thing out of the way here, and that is so people can see, there are some consolidation trends.
Yes.
Of some government entities have been consolidating, and again, I know it's hard to see, but if you look at the two lines in the center, which are converging, the one that's coming down is school districts. So the number of school districts in Ohio over time has been dropping. The number of special districts has been increasing.
Yes.
The number of county governments, municipal governments has stayed about the same.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's this tell you?
First of all, when people look at that graph and how we did it back in the early 60s with school consolidations, it's not what we're calling for right now. We're calling for consolidations of the back office operations, the superintendent, treasurers, bookkeepers, all that, consolidation of that. We're not talking about destroying your high school athletic team, okay? That's not what we're talking about. So when you look at that, we're talking a different type of consolidation. Orville and Rittman school districts up in northern Wayne County recently consolidated their back office operations. They're saving $270,000 a year, two very small rural school systems, and they've now hired a French teacher, first time ever. So lower cost, better service, we see that happening.
Ed, in Clermont County, I think over the years there has been consolidation. Some of your school districts right now are consolidated school districts from what had existed back in the 40s and the 50s. Is there any ongoing sort of momentum? Let's talk about the special districts. Is Clermont County created any new special districts, and if so, why?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I thought I saw on the website something about an environmental district. But maybe I might have missed it.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. Okay, so that's not an area that you see a proliferation in your county anyway.
No.
These special districts have been growing if you look at the entire region, though. Ed, you know, it's one thing to talk about, and we'll get to the specifics like back office and how this can happen. But traditionally, this whole talk, you raise questions about merger of government, consolidation of government. You're an elected official. It's the third rail of political politics. Politicians, you can't touch this thing. And is there any change in the mood that causes people to be any more interested in exploring this now because of the economics?
Well, certainly a carrot's good. We've also had a stick, which is a reduction of funds for local governments, particularly the local government funds. So I think there is a change in the mood. I think people are looking to possibly do something in this line in order to survive.
And what about the economy is another stick?
Sure.
I mean, your revenues have just gone down no matter what the budget.
Revenues have gone down because of interest rates, for example. Interest rates have gone down, and that was a fairly decent contributor to revenue for the county. When
you get together with OKI people, or in that context,
yes,
one of the groups of people you interact with is people from Kentucky.
Sure.
So on a county level, Kentucky has no townships. There's one thing that just eliminate 12 of those from Hamilton County and 14 of those from your county. Do people in Ohio and Kentucky begin to talk with each other about, you guys get away without having any of these things? I mean, is that a discussion? You were a township trustee.
Oh, sure. Particularly the fact that I'm involved in OKI allows me to talk to the fiscal judges from Northern Kentucky and compare our forms of government and how we're able to operate and move things forward. And certainly there are differences.
And do you, Gene sort of set up this thing about flying into CVG and being able to do business more efficiently on the south side of the river than the north side. You're an elected politician in Ohio. Do you agree with that? Do you think they are more efficient?
Certainly to some extent they are, but we work hard to be efficient also. Our economic development department tries to work people through the system so that they know who they need to contact, and they aren't waiting a year until they make the contact to all the people that are necessary. I think we're trying to be as competitive as we can be, and certainly our governor is trying to make us competitive.
Yes, certainly he is. Stay right here. We're going to continue this after the break. Stay tuned. After the break, Ed and Jean will continue the discussion, and we will turn our attention to how local governments can use the $45 million over the next 2 years. Nah, that's all right. I think there's enough pad in that close. If I'm close, I can cut that. So, by the way, I'm definitely not going to use B4. You can float that. Welcome back. We're talking about the $45 million innovation fund in the new Ohio budget that is designed to encourage local governments to find efficiencies through mergers, consolidations, interactions, cooperation. I'm joined by Jean Krebs, the Senior Director of Government Affairs and Policy for the Greater Ohio Policy Center, which is based in Columbus, and Ed Humphrey, the President of the Clermont County Board of Commissioners and the President of the OKI Council of Governments. You know, we've been talking a lot, making lots of references to consolidation, merger, looking for efficiency, and both of you really. I mean, you were a county.
I'm a recovering politician.
And you were a township trustee plus a county commissioner.
Right.
What's the value of local government in this situation before we lose touch with that side?
Right. Before we started the program, we talked a little bit about the leadership programs at Hamilton Clermont County. I was speaking to our Clermont County group about that, and really your quality of life choice is where you live, and where you live is based on what kind of government you have, what basis of government, and the services that are provided. And if you have services, you have to they cost something. So people live in one township that has a totally volunteer fire department, one station in the center of the township. Their response to the outside edges is 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And they live in another township that has 5 fire station and paid people, and their response time is 5, so, or less, 3. So it really depends on where you choose to live, and government costs money. So do you want services? Then you pay for those services. Township form of government, the township roads get plowed as the primary roads get plowed, rather than waiting till last or never get plowed. So it depends on what you choose, and people can make a choice about they don't like this anymore, and they don't want their roads plowed, or they don't want the local service. The other piece of having local government is that the local elected officials are there. As a township trustee, I plan to go to the grocery store and spend probably another hour in the grocery store, because people would, from the township, come up to me and say this or that. They liked it, they didn't like it, but they provided input. And so they saw the local officials, they knew the local officials, and they felt comfortable talking with them.
And I think actually that's one of the qualities of our community, and I'm talking about the region, our community as a whole. People feel they can get access to people who make decisions and who matter, that nobody is frozen out of the whole situation. And so local government and keeping it smaller, you know, there's some values there that we have to be careful not to lose.
But there's also a lack of transparency. And one of the things we were also talking about earlier is the fact that only 2 states elect their county engineer. And so county commissioners regularly get phone calls saying, why'd you hire this person who's obviously not competent to do this job? And we go, we didn't hire them. They say, well, what idiot did? And you go, well, you voted for him. Well, no. And it's because this overlapping and confusing layers of government means that it's often difficult to pinpoint who is actually responsible. And so the citizens find, and I've not heard of any riots going on in Kentucky about people saying, I don't know who to call and I'm very angry about that. You can figure it out pretty much in a hurry. But the core thing is that in Ohio, we must love government because we have so much of it.
One of the things I will say about the Kentucky situation is their counties are very small.
They're very small.
Very small compared to ours. I'm sorry, Ed.
Transparency, I have to challenge that just a little bit. I think local governments are trying to be very, very transparent. The township I came from videos their meetings so that everybody can see them. They're posted on the web. People can see what's going on. County governments, same thing. Ours are posted on the web and our video provided through our local access channels. And we try to make ourselves as very transparent as we possibly can.
Because I'm aware of time, I want to make sure we get to, Gene, what's going to happen now? Okay, there's $45 million that's now in this budget.
Right.
How is that actually going to be used? I mean, how's it going to get out and make any difference?
It's going to be driven by the local communities through their what is commonly called Issue 2 coordinating districts are going to be the ones who are going to make the initial vetting of the projects that the local government is going to bring forward. And then it's going to go to Columbus, where it's going to be reviewed. Then, much like our current Clean Ohio funds, a lot of our current structure is already done. It's then going to be reviewed again by a council made up of primarily elected officials, members of the General Assembly, designates of the governor, auditor of state, people like that. And they're going to look at it, and it's going to be about, first of all, can you get, it's going to be a cost reduction, how many entities are collaborating on this, and hopefully at the end of the day, you're going to end up with some better service.
One of the things I saw in the language about this is that if an entity applies and takes a loan, they can pay it back from the savings that they get.
Yeah.
But Jerry Abramson, the mayor of Louisville, who I interviewed a year ago, not for this show, but he pointed out, and he worked for 20 years to merge Jefferson County and the city of Louisville, but he pointed out merger doesn't automatically bring cost savings. It may bring greater efficiency, and in the long run it may bring cost savings, but in the short run you may have to may have to buy a new computer system to get everybody talking with each other. I mean, there can be costs rather than savings involved too.
And that's what this program is designed to do, is to help cover those upfront costs.
Okay.
That, for example, if a county wanted to go to a single centralized 911 service, well, that's going to require then probably some, the old, outdated equipment probably be scrapped, new equipment probably be purchased. Those types of very efficiencies is what we're trying to get to.
Ed?
Clermont County has moved along real well in that we have actually have 2 dispatch centers for the county. So we have a consolidated 911 system. We've moved along in a lot of consolidation.
Could you imagine, could you have in mind something that you could either work with inside the county itself, helping the villages and cities work more efficiently, or cross counties or anything? Do you have a project that you could even imagine at this point?
I don't have one.
You don't have one. And you mentioned one about schools, sort of merging back office stuff.
Merging back office operations, you may need to go ahead and, let's say you merge your transportation supervisors. We may need to get yourself some new software, maybe a couple of new computers to go ahead and manage that larger project. But we think that there's a definite target-rich environment out here.
And this is for both of you. What are the people who are behind this and want to see this work and change occur? What are they going to have to do on the local level, in this case Southwest Ohio? What are they going to have to do to make this happen? Because I could see people saying, we like what we got.
Okay, and if you like what you got and you're happy, keep in mind though that if you look around the rest of the country, I mean, we spent 50 years in a Cold War. Now we're in a jobs war. And it's going to be about getting your core costs down low and investing in what matters.
Ed, we're less than a minute left here.
It relates to what you want, and people are going to have to make a decision about what they want to do and what levels of government they want and how much they are willing to pay for it.
Could you imagine this being a topic of conversation inside OKI?
Sure.
and how to, you know, maybe
Yes.
use some of this?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is sort of, for those of us who are government wonks, I find this fascinating, and therefore you'll be back.
Okay.
Because I want to track this and see if this really does have impact, not just in the budget, but has impact on the ground. Thank you very much, both of you, for being
Thank you.
here this
Thank
morning.
you.
And
Good
if
to
you
chat
want to
with you.
delve into the Innovation Fund in more depth, a good place to start is on the Greater Ohio Policy Center website at www.greaterohio.org. Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Remember, if you missed an interview or you want to alert someone you know to a segment of the show, every Newsmakers gets streamed on our website sometime on Monday following the broadcast and is accessible for about 3 months. Join us again next week to meet the men and the women working to find ways to make our region competitive and successful for the future. Have a good week.